video cassette. Can we talk about video games for just like 1 second? And I know this is like super nerdy and it's probably just me, but like uh, I literally have the the PlayStation VR system, which I don't know if you can see it. It's too far over. Here you go. This guy, PlayStation VR system, um, which I got because I wanted to start producing material for it eventually for VR setups and the like. Um, I have two computers that I use constantly. I don't really game on them though. I have a Xbox um, and a Switch, so I basically have all three of the big systems. And I don't really have as much time to play as I'd like. Um, sometimes, but the curious things about it is that I've after playing kind of games over my entire life, because literally I started doing video games when my next door neighbor Kurt, his dad was chairman of the school board, and Apple gave them a computer, like for the house, and Kurt and I used to play on this thing and do like early C programming, where you're right, like 10, 20, 30 line where you go like 10, right, you're a dummy, 20, go to 10, and it would just loop this, and then your screen would go, you're a dummy, brrr, across the thing. It was that's the G version of what we would write on there. But the point is, the world is not ready for Hellsparks VR. That's true. But we would load video games on audio cassette. You would have a cassette. You know, this is my tape dispenser, not a real size. This is not actual size. But you'd have this is literally what my Scotch tape dispenser is. That's how 80s I am. But like you would put the cassette into the player, and then you'd hit play, and then it would load the game on using what was effectively like fax sounds, like that, and it would do that for a half an hour. And so to keep from being driven insane, you would have to go. We'd leave the room, right? um, and and if you squeak the floor coming back in, it would somehow stop working. So we had to like tiptoe around it, and we would just sit. Like the level of patience it required to not go in there. You're like, is it done yet? Is it done? And then some of them you had to turn over relatively quickly, or the computer would seize up if it was a 2-disc or 2-sided game. And so the the Houseparks VR game will sell out, right? Yeah. Well, the blowing on the cartridge, that is a friggin' luxury compared to the cassette part of it. And so you'd have to turn it over, put it back in, boot the tape up, which is where that phrase comes from. You'd have to hand wind the tape like with your finger to get the brown part of the tape lined up right here, so that the leader, the part of the tape that had nothing on it, wouldn't interrupt the flow of data. So it had to start right at the edge. So you had to line it up right with the magnet, and then you'd slide it in there, and you were super careful and all this stuff. And it would take us like a half hour, 45 minutes to load a single game, and they were all knockoffs of arcade games. The two best ones being Taxman, which was a knockoff of Pac-Man, which moved really slow but was awesome, and a version of Berserk, called Berserker. And the quality, because it was 8-bit, it was literally zeros and ones. There was nothing and something was how things were defined on screen. So the head was a bunch of ones, and there was a gap between. It looked like your character looked like the bathroom guy. So there was the space between the neck and the head. And if you shot somebody through here, and your bullet went across and went through their neck, essentially, it would go out the other side, and they would be unharmed. um, yeah, And so yeah, so then you would, and then you graduate to like my buddy had an Intellivision, and you could, that had cartridges, and that was when you were having to blow in the cartridges to get the dust off them because there's any dust on the connection. Then we're to CDs, and CDs of course would skip. You had to keep putting them back in. Now you can kind of buy the game in a downloaded fashion, and the fact that and then you would, you could, like, now the company knows you downloaded, so if your system totally takes a crap, you can download it again. And soon enough, like, but here's the thing. Ultimately, like, I've played some amazing games. Resident Evil, I'm a huge fan of. I like Call of Duty. The sort of new Middle Earth related games that have just come out are very exciting. But kind of your nervous system only cares about what you care about. So nothing is more exciting in some ways than trying to beat Pac-Man. It's still like, yeah, the ghosts in Pac-Man are scary and seem to have a mind of their own. And if you really care about winning, your nervous system reacts to it as much as as it would any other, no matter how good it is. And you can have amazing graphics and find something dull after a short amount of time, or you can be playing, Mr. Dew's Castle and be like, damn it, they almost got me, that's the, let's see, Carl, you never use the pencil to wind the cassette? No, I always use my fingernail. I guess because my finger's about the size of a pencil at that age, so it's kind of the same thing. But I always felt like I had more control over it that way. And the pencil would slip because it wouldn't exactly link, That bothered me. That felt better. Bad pin connectors in the NAS was a problem. Yeah. Yeah, that was the inside. Everybody blamed the cartridge and then blowing the dust off. It turns out the actual, what would build up is the corrosion on the seating that held the cartridge and, the connectors in place. I'm just realizing it now, you can see it. Used to play in the old NES. Donkey Kong. I remember playing, we got a ColecoVision. That was a huge deal. And I had Smurf and Donkey Kong Jr. and Zaxxon. Those all came out from that. That was amazing. Like, just because Zaxxon was, 3 dimensions. And then Donkey Kong Jr. had so much more character and stuff than regular Donkey Kong, because you climbed up the vines and you had to hang swing between them and all that kind of stuff. That was amazing. And ColecoVision had one of those like button things like Intellivision did, where you could program stuff. They never used it. Like, they had big plans for how these controllers would be better than just a regular joystick, and it never amounted to anything. No, the Smurfs game was actually awesome. Because again, this idea that, if you care about how it turns out, that's what makes you nervous. It doesn't matter how, like Pitfall. I love Pitfall, And Pitfall looked like crap, just running and swinging across vines, and, it was an Indiana Jones game. It was amazing at the time, Commodore 64 with the big floppies. We didn't have these. Yeah, well, yeah, the big floppies were always a problem, because then if they got scratched, you were totally screwed. Netflix is dropping The Punisher the same weekend as Justice League, like a gangsta. They're dropping Punisher? I didn't know that. I had issues with that. See, I think personally, the best Punisher movie is Denzel Washington in Man on Fire. Like, that mixed with John Wick would be the Punisher movie. Grandma loved Pac-Man. She died in 1992. Aw. I also had an Atari and no issues with that either. Yeah. Single-sided, double-density, 5 1/4-inch floppies, man. State-of-the-art. Absolutely. And then the little, the hard floppies. I remember that the whole thing when Apple came out with those, and they were at this convention. They took one of the discs out and flung it across the room like a frisbee, and it, almost made it, landed on the floor. Somebody picked it up and put it in the machine, and it still worked, and everybody was like, oh my god. I'm still hooked on Angry Birds. Yeah, Well, that's the interesting thing is like there's a version of like, oh, we used to play with this little game on our phones where we would just like flick. It's based on physics and you could just flick stuff. Like Angry Birds sounds like something out of the 20s right now compared to, you know, in the next couple of years we're going to have, you know, basically hologram capable phones. You know, they already are with the VR stuff that's coming out with the new Apple computers in the fall. Completely viewable, you know, VR experiences. Man on Fire is a great movie. It's rough, but it's really great. But it is the best Punisher movie. You are the most best YouTuber ever. I like to think so. Now, if I only had their money. Dun, dun, dun. Alfred Hitchcock's Angry Birds would be terrific. Or the bird scene in High Anxiety. Bada boom. Art Floppy sounds like a Viagra convention. Played Space Invaders. That was the last one I ever played. Too many buttons now. I remember playing Space Invaders with my dad at a bar in Kentucky that had one when I was like 12, something like that. And they served food during the day, so you could come in there or whatever. And they had and my dad got 50 points, I remember. And I was like, you can't get 50 points. You get 50 points for dying. You have 3 guys. How can you have less than 150 points? I don't understand how that happened. To this day, my dad has an impossibly low Space Invaders score. Thank you for shouting that. Absolutely. By the way, how run, coward. That's right. From because you know, because my Sinistar. Oldest I've ever played on my Nintendo 64 still works. There's really no reason why not. Nurse Diesel. Oh man, Cloris Leachman is a genius. Still kicking it too, man. She's feisty as hell. I gave myself CPS playing Star. Wow, I can believe that. Something went negative, Hal? What do you mean? I missed that part. The Hill is reporting that Putin denies Trump asked about election interference. Yeah. Oh, wow. So Trump's saying that every time I asked him nothing, he always denies it is a lie, too. So Putin's basically let him hang out to dry. Yeah. Sinistar is amazing. It's totally gut-wrenching, though, because it's super, like, it's just, I remember it being so scary. Because once it starts, you're done. You can't win after he's shown up. It's just, you just die. Oh, no matter how many characters you have left, you're just screwed. Stranger Things 2, they're playing Dragon's Lair. That's hilarious. Loved Dragon's Lair, even though you only had, like, 2 choices and the timing. It was all just a timing game. And, you know, Space Invaders. He must have gotten negative scores so much, which took away from the 150 points. I don't know. I still to this day don't know. And I have Space Invaders on my machine. Still can't figure it out. Putin always tells the truth. There's no right part of murder, not ever. We're not in this to make a name for ourselves. So let's make some Metal Gear Solid. Yeah. Yeah, there's, I mean, like, I was never, like, I have buddies who, when we were making the first 01 record, Mike, our engineer, loved Halo. So they would have, like, these Halo tournaments, basically, in his studio. And for me, like, it just was, there was something sort of cartoonish about the Halo outfits. And I, like Call of Duty and Battlefield were a little more gritty looking. Is Psycho American one of your newer songs for 01? Yeah, it is. We have the new one, the new version of it's out on iTunes already. Maybe I need it's American Psycho. Yeah. 45 and Putin, they're both totally untrustworthy. I agree. Loved Asteroids. Joust. Oh, Joust is awesome. Strange is newer. You are correct, Ginger. Is technically the newest single. And there will be another album. But Joust, I love Joust. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's one of the ones I like. Will play at an arcade every time I see it. Just because the having to fly part and timing when you fly through it is so difficult, and the whole thing, it's just like real jousting in that all that matters is that your joust is higher than somebody else's, even if you just come like this close. And then the eggs, and then the lava appearing, and like leveling up with that, and the number of them, and how they appear, and the kind of it's really a nerve-wracking sound. It's such a well-crafted game and totally nuts. Like, think about Joust as a game. You're on flying ostriches. They're not eagles. They're ostriches. They have these long legs. They walk like ostriches. They have this kind of like shuffle step where it takes them a second to get going, to take off, like they're albatrosses or something like that, and yet they are flying ostrich. It's the weirdest thing. Dude, boy, Arcade Tron is awesome. It reminds me of like any of those ones where you have to beat the rotating cylinder kind of games. There's a few of those kind of games. Robotron 2001, or was it 2019? 2019, yeah. The Robotron game where you can shoot with one stick and you move with the other, and you just kind of aim wherever around you, and you have to try to save the families by releasing them from the grip of the robot. I like Discs of Tron over the 4 minigame Tron. I just like I remember seeing the Tron game itself with like the blue handle, and it had like a really nice break. I was like, Battlezone. Battlezone's amazing. You know, like you can just drive the thing, and you're looking through the viewfinder, and it's just, it was just like, green lines, nothing really special about it. No real depth of field, but technically one of the first VR games because you could go in any direction. Pong showed me I have absolutely no hand coordination. Well, hand-eye coordination. Well, technically speaking, it was supposed to give you eye-hand coordination. That's what a lot of these games are actually good for, is developing eye-hand coordination, if anything. Because my eye-hand coordination is pretty on, and I attribute at least some of it to gaming. Tron Cycle game. Yeah, I mean, talk about a simple thing, just trying to outrun and outbox in the other people. A little bit of chess, a little bit of motorcycle racing. Discs of Tron was you controlling Tron in a disc duel. That one I feel like they haven't quite gotten. The closest thing is the Batman Arkham for the VR, where you can throw the batarangs. That's kind of amazing. Asteroids, yeah, Sinistar in many ways is Asteroids with a big villain. There's some nice stuff to Asteroids, though, and this kind of ongoing world that's beyond the screen you see creates a really terrific, extended mental picture of the world, because you're only seeing this amount, and there's no reason to believe any of it's real. You see some rocks leave the top of the screen, they enter the bottom of the screen, so you're kind of in this weird forever loop, but it gives this illusion that it goes on in some weird way forever. You gotta go joystick to control Tron, and a rotation circle controller to aim the discs. Right. Spades or Clue. Clue is still to this day one of my, I think I would say my favorite board game. Cribbage. That Pong at the pizza joint. They had one of the first ones in the area. You never could develop that hand. Yeah, the pizza place, Pizza Inn, which was like a knockoff Pizza Hut in Frankfort, Kentucky. They had the first Galaga as a table one, and I remember being so excited to play Galaga, but hating playing it as a table one. Oh, don't be a spoil sport, Ike. We're just talking gaming. It's not at the exclusion of books. You know the amount of reading I do in a week? Literally, I was complaining to my girlfriend last night. Like, I think like my eyes were feeling sore just because of all the reading I've been doing lately, especially keeping up with all this Russian nonsense and the books I'm working on and the script I'm writing and the learning I have to do for Freemasons for my degree stuff. Like, I was just wiped out. Like, I'm like, my eyes are getting sore. I'm getting like old school squinty from reading so much. Sadly, just a PC nerd, but the Street Fighter games are being released for PC at least. That's great. Oh, you can Risk. Risk Pittsburgh? Is it a version of Risk Ike that takes place entirely in Pittsburgh? How can outread anyone? It's kind of true. Yeah, I read quite a bit. Do you know any Super Looper software rig designers, Hal? I'm trying to streamline mine for tour. I know I'm using too much effort for too little result. Specific things I want to do, I cannot. Astral Music Man, I use the Line 6 Helix. It has a looper in it. It also has some, secondary ins and outs and kind of two branch chains. It's not real hard to figure out. I like mine a lot. I go direct when I use it. I used to go. I've done direct when playing for quite a while now, and I use the Line 6 Pod XD or HD, yeah, and it was a little tinny. You had to equalize the crap out of it so it didn't sound digital and harsh, because when you're removing the amp from the process. But the Helix doesn't have that problem, and I'm a big fan. It really makes me want to get under the hood and start building even more onto it. But it's been fantastic. There are cooperative board games out there like Pandemic. Well, if you watch the starter kit show that I did with my dear friend Jason Charles Miller, was teaching how to play D&D. That I love too, because there's something really fun about that, both the mixture of decisions you make and the rolling of the dice, which, gives you that kind of real life, hey, not everything works when you try it aspect. Right. Yeah, I missed a chunk of board games out there. Probably been wearing glasses since grade 3. What I hate is keeping the lenses clean. Oh, yes, and your glasses. It's why I don't wear sunglasses very often, Carl. I'm Hal's age, no glasses yet. My whole family wears it. My family all wore glasses pretty early, so I'm good. My eyes have held out as long as they have. Next 10, 15 years, it's all stem cells after that. Yeah, but I think I'm complicated, but yeah, I think your system's on. Dude, Astral Music Man, the boards I've seen lately. When we were doing our record, our second single, we were doing it at Parnan's shop. And he was working on Steve Stevens' record, and Steve Stevens' pedal board looks like something out of NASA in 1968. It's huge, and just the number of stuff that's wired together, it's insanity. And every time I would there's some really cool stuff, and he's great with playing around with it. The only thing that I'm thinking about adding to my system that is currently not in there is a guitar synth, because during certain songs I would like to have some keyboard sounds in as fill on stuff that I'm not playing along with, like on She Waits during the verses. It would be nice to be able to chord my way through some strings, and and rather than remove somebody playing and have them playing keyboard. So I might do a guitar synth edition for that part of it. Or when I finally get around to it, we do the final countdown or something like that, actually playing the make it sound like for real. But that's the only thing I would add to my rig that the Helix doesn't produce, and it's incredibly tweakable. I might even do kind of a video about it. You know what amp by itself, when I'm talking about like raw amp, long and short delay simultaneously, is totally possible within this, because you have literally two chains. You can have one chain with a short delay in it that's its own amp, and then a second amp entirely with a longer delay in it that you can turn off separately or turn on separately. Thank you, Ginger. We rehearsed it last week too to get it even better, to where I'm even more comfortable doing it, and now we're really falling into where we're getting the harmonies built and all that stuff. But I literally had to get over the hump of just feeling competent getting the notes out consistently. So that's always a test, Anyways, okay. So there ended our game discussion for the time being. So. Yeah. So, so if you like that discussion on video games, whatever, don't forget to like and subscribe. There you go. Click the links and